Hello, Nitish.
Hi, Lizzie.
Where are you right now?
I am sitting in a corner right outside the Daniel Patrick Moynihan Courthouse of the Southern District of New York.
Slate's Nitish Pahwa is there covering the trial of Sam Bankman-Fried, the disgraced founder and CEO of cryptocurrency exchange FTX. Bankman-Fried, also known as SBF, did testify on Thursday, but it was more of a back and forth between lawyers and the judge. The main event for the jury to hear was on Friday. And this was the big day Sam Bankman-Fried testified. What's the scene there? What was it like when you got there?
We've been generally trying to get here pretty early in the mornings to, try to get a courtroom perspective, maybe. What I did not count on was people literally getting here in some cases at like 3 a.m., 2:30 a.m. to get their spots. And I mean, they got them, applause to them. I am glad that they were able to make the effort. I hope they get a lot of sleep after. But yeah, I got here at 6 a.m. and I think I was today 37th officially in line. Yeah. And there were many, many more behind us, of course.
Bankman-Fried faces 7 charges of fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. And thus far, the jury has heard from a parade of witnesses that do not make him look good. How much for the defense is riding on this moment of Sam testifying?
I mean, I think it's all or nothing at this point because the defense throughout this trial has not really had its own real constructive story or narrative to push back against what the government is alleging in this case. So far, when they've cross-examined witnesses, it's usually been a lot of smaller questions. They've tried to imply certain points, maybe that, oh, like you're saying this because you're cooperating with the government, right? Or, oh, you didn't know this because you weren't in this position, right? Like, oh, Sam was doing this because he's CEO, right? But they never totally spell it out or anything. So there's barely a defense already as is. So basically, Sam taking the stand is their Hail Mary. That's all they have left.
Today on the show, Sam Bankman-Fried takes the stand in his own defense. It's a high-risk move, but he's running out of options. I'm Lizzie O'Leary, and you're listening to What Next TBD, a show about technology, power, and how the future will be determined. Stick around. Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back upfront when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you could automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Most of you listening right now are probably multitasking. Yep, while you're listening, you're probably also driving, cleaning, exercising, or maybe even grocery shopping. But if you're not some kind of moving vehicle, there's something else you can be doing right now. Getting an auto quote from Progressive Insurance. It's easy, and you could save money by doing it right from your phone. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save nearly $750 on average, and auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Discounts for having multiple vehicles on your policy, being a homeowner, and more. So, just like your favorite podcast, Progressive will be with you 24/7, 365 days a year, so you're protected no matter what. Multitask right now. Quote your car insurance at Progressive.com to join over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the main beats of his defense testimony. What does the strategy seem to be?
I think the strategy, if there can really be said to be one at this point, is to paint Sam again as someone who did nothing wrong. And if things went wrong at his companies, FTX and Alameda Research, it was for a few different reasons. One, he listened to his lawyers and his lawyers signed up on everything. Two, he trusted his friends who helped him run his companies, Caroline Ellison, Gary Wang, Nishad Singh, others, and they all but let him down. Three, Sam was so busy eventually acting as the face of FTX, trying to get his marketing out there, trying to network with so many other famous people or powerful folks and getting investments or investing in other places that he just didn't have time to look at the granular details. And the people he trusted to look at those, again, could not be trusted, turns out.
That's a little bit of a reprise of what we heard in his big media tour after FTX went under, which was kind of, well, I wasn't following the details. I didn't do anything criminal here. I probably just wasn't paying attention.
Exactly. And I mean, obviously, like a lot of his charges here rely on intent. They're, conspiracies for securities fraud, conspiracy, commodity fraud, and straight up wire fraud, etc. But it also definitely sounds like John J. Ray, the bankruptcy lawyer for FTX, was correct when he said that he's never seen such a lack of corporate controls. Because if we are to take Sam at his word here, it sounds like he knew nothing was going on. I'm not a businessman, but that doesn't sound like a great CEO to me.
Are there any particular moments in the testimony on Friday that stand out to you?
Mainly from how Judge Lewis Kaplan was reacting, if anything. I've written this in some of my dispatches. He's been pretty funny, snarky throughout this whole trial, like making little digs at both the prosecution and defense when he seems warranted, or like cutting in to tell a story or a joke of sorts that is still relevant to the case in some manner. And today, however, he seemed less like a kind of snarky and more exhausted. He clearly did not enjoy how long this slice of testimony was taking. He was not happy, I don't think, with the fact that they had to have this additional hearing yesterday before this big actual jury blowout today. And I think he just looked at when, Cohen was asking Sam certain questions about this or that. He'd be like, okay, can we get on with it? Sam, you're not giving an answer right now. This is all extremely vague. We really need this to pick up, like right now. Can we wrap it up soon? It was pretty striking. I mean, this is the first criminal case I've ever reported from, but I would somehow doubt that this is a common occurrence.
One of the biggest questions hanging over this case is how FTX treated customer assets. What did Sam Bankman-Fried say?
First off, during today's testimony, and I did think this was interesting, he straight up denied using customer assets. But one of his lines of argument, and one of the defense's lines of argument similarly, is that people who were FTX customers and who opted into certain trading programs on FTX, specifically spot margin trading, had basically all but given their permission to have their deposits be used by FTX in case things went awry for other people at the company, which that's one argument for sure. And they're also trying to argue that such margin trades were the most significant part of the platform. That being said, I have seen nothing so far, like whenever they've exhibited FTX terms of service or specific instructionals around margin lending or customer assets and otherwise, that actually suggests in any way that it was okay for Sam to have allegedly funneled these customer deposits, whether margin trading or not, into a secretive little bank account and then using it to splurge on investments or donations of his choosing. And it's straight up in, again, these terms of service and everything. It says like, customer assets are segregated away from others. But by any account, those customer assets were not segregated. You can ask anybody who lost money after FTX's bankruptcy over the past year. So I'm not sure how convincing that's going to be. I can't see inside the mind of the jury, obviously, but I highly doubt that his straight up denial is going to hold water.
What about the relationship between FTX and Alameda Research, its sister hedge fund? Alameda borrowed some $8 billion from FTX, and that's the $8 billion in question, right? That's some customer money in question. How did Sam describe that $8 billion under questioning?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways he's gone about talking about this, but basically, so the undisputed story, like Sam is definitely not denying this either, is that Alameda at the beginning, when they were starting up FTX, was going to be the quote unquote market maker for the FTX exchange to give it a place for trades and such. And what ended up happening was that there was a bank account set up under Alameda Research, given the name North Dimension, that actually took in the money that FTX customers thought that they were depositing onto FTX. And so Sam's argument is that, look, we didn't have bank accounts. Banks didn't want to bank with crypto companies. So what we had to do was just use our quote unquote research firm to make up for this deficit.
In order to be liquid and trade and get things moving.
Exactly. But then, and he talks constantly like, look, in the years afterward, because FTX started in 2019, in the years afterward, Alameda was less of a presence on FTX. As we got bigger and more famous, we had other people, and Alameda became a smaller slice of the whole equation. But whatever he says about that does not account for that $8 billion. There's been a lot of talk about a computer code bug that funneled way more money into Alameda from FTX than was supposed to happen. But even after that bug was fixed, there was still a big gaping amount. And we've heard pretty unambiguously, again, from SBF's own lieutenants, Caroline Ellison, Gary Wang, that money was being used by Sam to splurge as he pleased. And we've all seen the sheets now showing his big multi-million-dollar investments in Larry David, the Miami Heat stadium, and so on. So it's a question of not just that Sam lost the money on a lot of places or in investments that didn't pay up, but that he did use it in a way that was not fair to his customers, because whatever said and done, there were still a significant amount of FTX customers that did not opt into the spot margin program, much less to having their money taken out and invested in big AI companies or such. So for him to, be relying on this argument and to say oh, well, actually, it was other people below me who mishandled it is, again, I don't find it terribly convincing, and I highly doubt the jury does either.
When we come back, what does the jury think about all this? Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back upfront when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you could automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
Do you ever feel like your laptop just keeps going, but you are completely drained?
I think a lot of us don't realize how much pain we live in because of our interactions with computing.
NPR's Body Electric, a special interactive series investigating how to fix the relationship between our tech and our health. Listen in the TED Radio Hour feed wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, this is Mary Harris, host of Slate's daily news podcast, What Next? Slate's mission has always been to cut through the noise, boldly and provocatively. This election season and Supreme Court term are no different. Important coverage like this, though, it would not be possible without the support of our Slate Plus members. So, I'm going to invite you to join us with a special offer. You can try your first 3 months for only $15. That is $5 a month for your first 3 months of uninterrupted ad-free listening on every Slate podcast, member-exclusive episodes and segments of your favorite shows like Amicus and the Political Gabfest, and unlimited reading on the Slate site. Best of all, you'll be supporting all of Slate's independent journalism and analysis as we make sense of the news like no one else can. Sign up for Slate Plus at slate.com/podcastsplus. Again, that is 3 months for only $15. So sign up now at slate.com/podcastplus.
Is there any way to know how the jury is receiving any of this yet? Were you able to even see their faces?
Unfortunately, I've not been in the courtroom this week, but the days I have been in the courtroom, I've been keeping an eye on the jury and trying to see how they're reacting. At first, they were very attentive, taking notes, looking keenly at all the witnesses who've been taking up on the stand. But I mean, today, actually, I asked another reporter right after we got out of the proceedings. This reporter was in the courtroom. I asked him, yeah, so how did the jury look? And he just said, tired. They looked tired. I mean, and I can't blame them. It appears as though they've had to go through an entire crash course on the crypto industry and then the specifics of this big aspect of the crypto industry, along with all the big financial fraud terms that come with it.
As we mentioned, Sam Bankman-Fried went on this sort of endless media apology tour as FTX was crumbling. Has any of that come back to haunt him during this trial?
Yes, definitely. There was a very prominent example of this last week, actually. We heard last Thursday from Can Sun, who was formerly a general counsel for FTX for about a year or so. And pretty much everyone who's testified has talked about those weeks in November when everything fell apart. And then, a lot of them fled the Bahamas or fled Hong Kong or wherever their offices were. And in many cases, talked to federal prosecutors. When Can Sun himself was going through that horrible time, he mentioned that on the night that basically everything with FTX was crashing after those tweets from Binance's CEO, Changpeng Zhao, about how he was liquidating all his positions in FTX's token, he and Sam apparently went on a walk around their Bahamian complex. And Sam was asking him, okay, what are legal arguments we can use here to explain what's going on and these big holes, including, as it turns out, this big $8 billion deficit. And what Can Sun told us in the courtroom, one, was that he gave Sam some potential arguments, but he told them that none of them really actually held water, and that he knew this because of his own in-depth knowledge of FTX's legal documents and, of course, the law, because he is a counsel. So, and one of those hypothetical but ultimately bad arguments he presented to Sam was, look, you can say that And again, this is the line of argument Sam's been also trying to use throughout this trial, and as is his defense. You could say that the borrow lending functions enabled by customers who opted into spot margin programs and to having their money used as collateral for other FTX customers, you can say that this facility basically went out of control and lost way more money than it should have, thanks in large part to all the crypto crashes that came happening and hitting currency prices like those of Bitcoin and Ethereum throughout 2022. But again, this does not hold water when you look at our terms of service and you look at how customer assets go. Now, fast forward to not too long afterward, I think just a few weeks after FTX's bankruptcy, when Sam Bankman-Fried agreed to have an interview with George Stephanopoulos for Good Morning America. And during this interview, George, I really have to give him credit on this one. He'd had a little packet of printed out of the FTX terms of service and was like looking at them and citing them while he was talking to Sam at one point, saying, okay, but you use customer deposits, and it says here you should not be using customer deposits. What's going on with that? And then Sam was like, well, he paused. He was thinking back for a bit. There was a borrow lending facility.
There existed a borrow lending facility on FTX. And I think that's probably covered, I don't remember exactly where, but somewhere else in the terms of service.
But they'd have to approve of that. They're saying they didn't approve of it here. They're saying you approved of it.
If you rewind to the beginning of FTX, where some customers were I think in line with sort of existing relationships that they've had, at least in some cases, wiring money straight to Alameda Research in order to trade on FTX.
So you do know, and you did know, that FTX deposits were being funneled to Alameda.
So I was vaguely aware that was how some wires were being sent in the first place.
Didn't that set off alarm bells in your head?
This clip from the interview was actually played during the trial when Kan Sun was testifying. Then after it was turned off, prosecutors asked Kan Sun, so this borrow lending thing that Sam said here, you gave him that argument, right? It was you who talked about it with him. And Kan Sun was like, yep, that's correct. And then the prosecutor said, and you told him that this didn't actually hold water, right? Correct? And what did Sam say to that? He acknowledged it.
Oh.
And apparently his acknowledgement was a very buzzy nod and a yep, is how Kan characterized it.
So looking ahead, what's going to happen next week? Because this has been Sam as a defense witness. The prosecution has not really gotten a shot at him yet.
The defense has said that they plan on finishing their questions for Sam by 11:30 on Monday, after which the prosecution will go on for their cross. I think no matter what, it's going to be a pretty lengthy cross-examination, and I would not be shocked if that carries over into Tuesday, which would then mean that everything that happens usually at the close of a case is going to be kind of happening in rapid succession. There will be the defense rebuttal, the closing arguments from both sides, which both of them have said are going to be a few hours long each, at the very least, in addition to the prosecution's own rebuttal. And then there has to be the hearing to formally present the charges to the jury. So we are going to be in the thick of it all of next week. I think we're actually going to be in all 5 days, it sounds like, even though we've generally been only doing 4-day weeks for this trial. But it sounds like the judge really, really wants to get it done sooner than later. So they're going to pack it all in. And I think Monday is, I know that we've been teasing this now ever since it was reported Wednesday that Sam would be taking the stand. But I really do think Monday, at the very latest, Monday afternoon, is going to be the day to watch for the prosecution's take.
Nitish Pahwa, thank you so much for covering this trial and for making the time to talk to me.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Nitish Pahwa covers business and tech for Slate. And that is it for our show today. What Next TBD is produced by Evan Campbell and Anna Phillips. Our show is edited by Jonathan Fisher. Alicia Montgomery is vice president of audio for Slate. And TBD is part of the larger What Next family. TBD is also part of Future Tense, a partnership of Slate, Arizona State University, and New America. And if you are a fan of the show, the best way to support us is to join Slate Plus. Just head on over to slate.com/whatnextplus to sign up. All right, we will be back next week with more episodes. In the meantime, you can check out all the coverage of Sam Bankman-Fried's trial at slate.com. I'm Lizzie O'Leary. Thanks for listening.